Exorcist manga ranked right up there, second only to isekai, as the most overused genre in manga. It seems like every couple of months, some new generic Exorcist manga comes out, and people seem to gobble it up, no matter how questionable it is. But unlike the majority of isekai, there are actually quite a good number of genuinely good Exorcist manga. Not mind-blowing, but okay. But when you're talking about the truly great ones, only a few can lay claim to that title. And as of August 2024, Bumiji Yuba started down the path of adding another manga to that list, in the form of the Imperial Cabinet. The saying, "no good deed goes unpunished in the Imperial Cabinets," says a lot about what sort of organization it really is. As far back as humanity can remember, the arcane has been a tool of conflict, manipulation at the highest government level, and tools of war. Those who could use these mystical arts were called spellcasters, and while they were powerful, they were few. For a while. Over the years, the number of spellcasters grew and grew, and in an attempt to systemize both the arcane and its users, the Imperial Cabinet was born as a means of both a governmental branch of the spellcaster body, with sections and departments such as the Ministry of Shrines, Auditors, Central Affairs, Justice, Treasury, and much more, used to govern the spellcasters scattered all over the country, and a secondary separate branch as a means to combat these. Veiled beasts, supernatural entities born of human unrest and fear, kept in check by the spellcasters under the Ministry of Shrines. These are practitioners of the arcane, trained in both supernatural extermination and a high proficiency in firearms. Because this is in the Edo period where spellcasters summon down fire from the sky. Now they summon fire from the sky and lead from the barrel of a sanctified semi-automatic. The world of spellcasters has evolved. No more senseless death or endless battles. Measures have been put in place to prevent Bilbis attacks from even happening in the first place. Shrines are placed all over Japan as barriers to stop major Bilbis incursions and keep the country safe. The Imperial Cabinet is keeping Japan safe. That wasn't until a series of unexplained Bilbis attacks occurred. They were too frequent. Attacks that would normally occur once or twice a month, now happening multiple times a week. All near shrines. Shrines are meant to seal the passageway from Bilbis into our world. People were being attacked. People were dying. Something like this hadn't happened for hundreds of years, and in an attempt to get to the bottom of this, we are introduced to our main character, Toya Tatsumori and his subordinates, people who could not stand around and watch others die, and decided to take matters into their own hands. He and his team reported the incursions to the Imperial Cabinets, but with any institution that lasts long enough, the process of calcification and corruption is inevitable, and that is exceptionally true in the Eastern enchantments, more commonly known as the Imperial Cabinets. The top brass knew about these incursions, but chose to do nothing. But Toya wouldn't stand for it. Even if it meant going behind the cabinet's back and risking everything, they would stop the incursions before it was too late. But it was too late. Someone in the Imperial Cabinets, someone very powerful, had been stealing and diverting Dragonite shipments, the main source of the talisman used to make the shrines, keeping the Bale Beasts at bay. This could cause a mass outbreak of Bale Beasts if the shrines failed simultaneously. The destruction was awesome. Entire squads of exorcists wiped out, slaughtered faster than they could react. But they stood fast, fighting until the last man, because failing to stop them would be failing Japan. Fathers, mothers, brothers, sisters, sons, daughters fighting to the death, because the institution they had sworn to fight for was willing to throw their lives away. And when the life of one of Toya's closest friends and subordinates was on the line, to protect his dying friend and to hold back the advancing enemy line, Toya tapped into the ley lines, raw magical energy flowing through the earth, harnessed this, and released a spell to hold the enemies back. That act turned the tide of battle and very nearly killed him. He was bedridden for weeks, barely able to move, but within him his mind was racing, and once he regained his strength, his war began. Not on evil spirits or curses, those were extensions of human emotion, mindless beings who kill because the human emotion itself is violent. No, his war was against the greater evil. His war was on the parasite that was eating the magic world from the inside out, the Imperial Cabinet itself. If you thought Tatsumori Toya was just another soldier, you're dead wrong. And if you thought it was just the beginning of his battle, you'd be even more wrong. His ties to the Imperial Cabinets run deep, and his roots spread far, and his hatred for its evil even deeper still. And while his methods were usually more subtle, they have put one of his closest friends, a man who had put his life in Toya's hands, hands in a coma, and one by one, no matter how long it took, he was taking down the Imperial Cabinet's rot and rebuilding it the way it should be built. After all, it is his birthright. Imperial Cabinet has scratched an itch so deep in my subconscious, I'm not sure there was ever an itch to scratch in the first place. For those of you who don't know, I love the Blue Exorcist. I've always been a fan of Exorcist manga in general, but the Blue Exorcist has always been my favorite. And even though people have been telling me that this leans more toward JJK than the Exorcist manga, what exactly do you think JJK is? It's still a very new manga, with less than 3 chapters out at the time of this recording. And while it isn't anywhere near the Blue Exorcist, seeing as I was so young, I believe it has the makings to meet up with or even surpass its counterparts in the near future. It has a lot of similarities with the critically acclaimed work by Kazuo Kato, but where Imperial Cabinet fundamentally differs from Blue Exorcist is the narrative balance. While Blue Exorcist finds a true balance between fighting the evil that is the demons and the evil within their own organization, Imperial Cabinet leans heavily towards the latter. The Imperial Cabinet as an ideology is near perfect. Measures have been put in place so that Bill-based incursions become so minimal, they're not really a threat to the larger human population, until humans got their hands on the ideal and corrupted it. And while I'm sure as the manga continues, or at least I hope, the Bale beasts will become a larger threat, as we are yet to see any with human intelligence or above. For now, the greatest threat to the Imperial Cabinet is itself. People who for the love of power or money are willing to put the lives of hundreds of thousands at risk. And after the massive incursion caused by the seals failing, those within the cabinet who still fight for what is good and just wish to root out the cause of these incursions. Little do they know that it is one of their own, but with no direct evidence linking the major powers within the cabinet to these crimes, the only way to usurp them requires some of the most entertaining 4D chess I've ever seen in my entire life. Imagine near Death Note level of setup and execution. Toya's immense powers as a sorcerer is only overshadowed by his tactical brilliance. He cannot directly act against the cabinet, as doing so will bring destruction not only to him, but to his subordinates and friends as well. But people drunk on power make mistakes, and people drunk on wine make even more mistakes. The only issue I have with this manga is that because it's heavily reliant on politics and hierarchies in the organization, sometimes it can be really overwhelming to read. Some explanations can take 1 or 2 pages with you reading it multiple times for you to fully understand what's going on, but I assure you, it feels amazing where you finally understand what's going on and the stakes attached to it. It's like Hunter x Hunter levels of reading. There's a lot more I'm not explaining about the manga, and it has a lot to do with the structure of the Imperial Cabinets, the different sections or ministries that govern aspects of the organization and the larger roles they play in the story, or the factions backing the succession war between the Empire's 2 legitimate sons, which is also a major plot point in the manga. But I'm trying my best to leave enough of the manga unspoiled for those of you who would still like to read it. But what I can talk more about is the art. Imperial Cabinet has some really high quality art. I mean, it is a monthly manga, so good art's expected, but I don't know if it's just the art style, but the art just looks great. Super clean character designs, which you tend to notice a lot with the amount of talking that goes on in this manga. And when we start to actually get into the fights, some of the cleanest fight scenes out of everything that's come out in the last couple of years. The art doesn't have like a whole lot of brushstrokes, but the amount of white space creates really strong contrast with the black ink. Also, the sorcerer techniques look really good. While the manga is heavily plot-centered, the art doesn't fall short a bit. A great mix of magic, politics, and exorcism mayhem in the Imperial Cabinet. And with that, we come to the end of our video. Thank you for watching. This was the source material, and I hope you have an amazing day. Bye!